Okay, stay calm. How far apart are the contractions?
They're coming fast. I think the baby is coming now.
The doctor's face paled as he looked between the birth certificates and the DNA results. Mr. Parker, there's something you need to know about these twins you helped deliver 3 months ago. James felt his world tilt sideways as the words hung in the air. According to these tests, you're their biological father. Asterisk. Hey everyone. If this incredible journey of fate, family, and second chances touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories that remind us how life's biggest surprises can become our greatest blessings. Now, let's dive into how a simple act of kindness changed everything for one single dad. James Parker drummed his fingers against the steering wheel, checking his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. The school pickup line hadn't moved in what felt like forever, and he was already running late for his shift at the fire station. Being a single dad to 10-year-old Lily while working as a firefighter wasn't easy, but they'd found their rhythm in the 3 years since Sarah's death. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister, asterisk running late. Can't pick up Lily from dance. Sorry, asterisk. James sighed, mentally rearranging his evening. Captain Rodriguez had been understanding about his situation, but James hated asking for special treatment. Just as the pickup line finally started moving, the skies opened up in a sudden summer downpour. Perfect, he muttered, inching forward as parents scrambled with umbrellas and raincoats. That's when he noticed her, a heavily pregnant woman standing at the bus stop across from the school, one hand clutching her rounded belly, the other holding a flimsy newspaper over her head as shelter from the rain. Even from a distance, James could see her face contorted in pain. Without thinking, James pulled out of the line and drove across to the bus stop. He rolled down his passenger window. "Are you okay, ma'am?" he called out. The woman looked up, her face pale and strained. I think I'm in labor," she managed between heavy breaths. "The bus is late, and I need to get to Memorial Hospital." James immediately unlocked the doors. "Get in. I'll take you." She hesitated only briefly before another contraction hit, convincing her to accept his offer. As she climbed awkwardly into his SUV, James noticed her soaked clothes and the small overnight bag clutched in her trembling hands. "I'm James," he said, pulling back onto the road and activating his hazard lights. "Elena," she replied through gritted teeth. "Elena Vasquez. Thank you for stopping. The contractions started this morning, but they weren't supposed to be this close yet. The twins aren't due for another 3 weeks." "Twins?" James glanced at her with newfound concern. "How far apart are your contractions?" "About 4 minutes now," she gasped, checking her phone timer. "Getting closer." James pressed the accelerator a little harder. "Hang in there, Elena. We'll get you there." As they drove, James called the school to explain the situation and arrange for Lily to wait in the office until his sister could pick her up. Then he called his captain. "Rodriguez, I'm going to be late. I'm driving a woman in labor to Memorial. Need me to send an ambulance to intercept?" his captain asked. Elena shook her head frantically. "No time," she whispered, her knuckles white as she gripped the door handle. "I think we're good," James told his captain. "I'll get her there faster than waiting for an ambulance to find us. Cover for me?" "You got it. Be careful, Parker." James navigated through traffic with the skill of someone used to emergency situations, taking shortcuts and using his firefighter's knowledge of the city grid. All the while, he kept talking to Elena, trying to keep her calm. "Is someone meeting you at the hospital?" he asked. Elena's face crumpled slightly. "No. It's just me." "The father?" She shook her head, pain flashing across her features that seemed unrelated to the contractions. "Not in the picture. Never was, really." James nodded, understanding more than she knew. "My daughter's mother passed away 3 years ago. It's just been Lily and me since then." Elena managed a small smile between contractions. You're doing a good thing here, James. Most people wouldn't have stopped. I'm a firefighter. Helping people is what I do, he said simply. As they approached the hospital, Elena's water broke. The contractions were coming barely 2 minutes apart now. We're almost there, James assured her, pulling up to the emergency entrance with a screech of tires. He ran inside, returning moments later with a wheelchair and 2 nurses. As they helped Elena inside, she grabbed James's hand. Thank you, she said, her dark eyes intense with pain and gratitude. James squeezed her hand. Good luck in there. He turned to leave, but one of the nurses stopped him. Sir, are you the father? No, I just. She's alone and progressing rapidly, the nurse explained. We could use someone with her until her doctor arrives. Would you mind? James hesitated, thinking of Lily waiting at school, his shift at the station. But the fear in Elena's eyes made the decision for him. He made a quick call to his sister, who agreed to stay with Lily until he could get there. I'll stay, he told the nurse. What happened next was a blur of activity. Elena was rushed to the maternity ward, already fully dilated. Her doctor was stuck in traffic due to the storm, and the babies were coming fast. I need to push. Elena cried out, gripping James's hand so tightly he felt bones shift. The attending nurse looked between Elena's legs and nodded grimly. Baby's crowning. We can't wait. James found himself positioned at Elena's side, supporting her back as she pushed, coaching her breathing the way he'd learned in birthing classes with Sarah years ago. Words of encouragement flowed from him automatically. You're doing great, Elena. Deep breath. Now push. The first baby, a boy, arrived with a lusty cry that filled the delivery room. But there was no time to celebrate as contractions for the second baby began immediately. One more time, James encouraged, wiping Elena's forehead with a cool cloth. You can do this. With a final, exhausted push, Elena delivered a baby girl. The twins were whisked away for assessment, both small but healthy at just over 5 pounds each. Elena collapsed back against the pillows, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered to James. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been there. James smiled, surprised by the emotion welling in his own chest. There was something about witnessing new life entering the world that transcended the awkwardness of their situation. What will you name them? He asked. Elena looked thoughtful. I was thinking Miguel for the boy, after my father. For the girl. She hesitated. Would it be strange if I named her Lily? I heard you mention your daughter's name earlier, and it's such a beautiful name. James felt an unexpected lump in his throat. I think that would be wonderful. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of Elena's doctor and a team of nurses. James slipped out, leaving his phone number with instructions to call if Elena needed anything. He had a strange feeling as he left the hospital, like he was leaving something important behind. 3 months passed. James and Lily fell back into their routine, though James found himself thinking about Elena and the twins often. He'd sent flowers to her hospital room the day after the birth but hadn't heard anything since. He respected her privacy, they were strangers, after all, connected only by an unusual circumstance. Then came the letter from Memorial Hospital's administrative office, requesting his presence regarding an urgent matter concerning the Vasquez twins' birth. James's first thought was that Elena had named him in some kind of lawsuit, though he couldn't imagine why. Still, he arranged to meet with the hospital administrator the following day. The administrator's office was cold and clinical, with certificates lining the walls and a large desk that seemed designed to intimidate. A Dr. James recognized from the delivery room was present, along with a woman in a business suit who introduced herself as the hospital's legal counsel. Mr. Parker, the administrator began, thank you for coming in. We have a rather delicate situation that requires your attention. James shifted uncomfortably. Is Elena okay? The twins? They're fine, physically, the doctor assured him. But we've discovered a serious error that occurred the day of their birth. The legal counsel slid a folder across the desk. 3 months ago, our fertility clinic experienced a computer system failure that resulted in certain mix-ups. James stared at them blankly. I don't understand what this has to do with me. The doctor cleared his throat. Mr. Parker, were you by any chance a sperm donor approximately 18 months ago? The question hit James like a physical blow. He had been, once, during the darkest period after Sarah's death, when money was tight and Lily needed braces. He'd almost forgotten about it. Yes, he admitted. At this hospital's clinic. But what does that? The administrator interrupted gently. Ms. Vasquez was a recipient of donor sperm. Due to the system error, the wrong sample was used in her procedure. She paused, letting the implication sink in. We've conducted DNA testing on the twins as part of our investigation into the system failure. James felt the room tilt slightly. Are you saying? The twins are biologically yours, Mr. Parker, the doctor confirmed. There's no question about it. James sat in stunned silence, trying to process this information. The twins he'd helped deliver, the tiny lives he'd witnessed entering the world, carried his DNA. They were his children. Does Elena know? He finally asked. We informed her yesterday, the legal counsel said. She was, understandably shocked. I need to see her, James said, standing abruptly. Where is she? Mr. Parker, please understand this is a complicated legal situation, the administrator cautioned. Ms. Vasquez has rights as the birth mother, regardless of the error. I don't care about the legal situation right now, James interrupted. I just need to talk to her. After some discussion, the hospital provided Elena's contact information. James called her immediately, and to his surprise, she agreed to meet him that afternoon at a cafe near her apartment. James arrived early, his thoughts racing. What did he want from this meeting? What could he possibly say to this woman who was raising his biological children without either of them having chosen this connection? Elena arrived pushing a double stroller. James's heart stuttered at the sight of the twins, now 3 months old, with dark hair and, he couldn't help noticing, eyes shaped remarkably like lilies. Hi, Elena said softly, maneuvering the stroller to the table. Hi, James replied, suddenly at a loss for words. They ordered coffee and sat in awkward silence for a moment before both speaking at once. I don't expect anything from you, Elena began. I'd like to be involved if you'll let me, James said simultaneously. They both stopped, surprised. You want to be involved? Elena asked cautiously. James nodded. They're I mean, biologically, they're. He struggled to find the right words. I know this isn't what either of us planned, but now that I know, I can't just pretend they don't exist. Elena studied him for a long moment. The hospital's lawyers mentioned possible financial compensation for the mix-up. Is that what you're after? No, James said firmly. I don't want money. I just want a chance to know them. And to help you, if you'll let me. Elena's expression softened. I've been doing this alone for 3 months, James. For the entire pregnancy before that. It hasn't been easy. I know something about being a single parent, he reminded her gently. Elena glanced down at the sleeping twins. Miguel has colic. He keeps me up most nights. And Lily, she smiled slightly at the name, she's the calm one, but she won't take a bottle. I'm exhausted all the time. Let me help, James said simply. Even if it's just watching them for a few hours so you can sleep. Elena looked skeptical. Why would you do that? You don't owe me anything. This wasn't your fault. It's not about fault, James said. It's about those 2 little lives. They didn't ask for this confusion either. After a long pause, Elena nodded. Okay. We can try. Slowly. That was the beginning. James started by visiting once a week, bringing Lily along to meet her half-siblings. To his surprise, 10-year-old Lily was enchanted by the babies, proudly declaring herself their big sister from the first meeting. Weeks turned into months. James's visits became more frequent, dropping by after shifts to give Elena a break, taking the twins for a few hours on weekends. He learned how to tell the difference between Miguel's hungry cry and his tired cry. He discovered that Lily, the baby, not his daughter, had a birthmark behind her ear shaped like a crescent moon. Elena gradually let down her guard, revealing pieces of herself. She was a graphic designer who worked from home, the daughter of Mexican immigrants who had passed away in a car accident when she was in college. She'd always wanted children but hadn't found the right partner, so at 36, she'd decided to use a donor and become a single mother. I never expected to share them with anyone, she admitted one evening as they sat on her small balcony, the twins finally asleep after a particularly fussy day. I never expected more children, James countered. After Sarah died, I thought our family was complete, just Lily and me. Elena studied him in the fading light. Do you regret it? Finding out about the twins? James considered the question seriously. No, he said finally. It was a shock, but, no. How could I regret them? Something shifted between them that night, a recognition that whatever strange circumstances had brought them together, they were now connected by something powerful and permanent. 6 months after their first cafe meeting, James arrived at Elena's apartment to find her surrounded by boxes. My lease is up, she explained. The landlord is raising the rent, and I can't afford a 2-bedroom on my own. James watched her struggle to pack while keeping the twins entertained and made an impulsive decision. Move in with us, he suggested. My house has 4 bedrooms. Lily would love having the twins around all the time, and we could share the childcare more easily. Elena looked startled. James, we can't just move in together. We're not. We're co-parents, he said simply. It makes practical sense. And if it doesn't work out, you can always find your own place later. After much discussion and a visit to see the house, Elena agreed to a 6-month trial. They converted James's home office into a nursery, and Elena took the guest room. They established careful boundaries and schedules, determined to make their unconventional arrangement work for the children's sake. The adjustment wasn't easy. James was used to his independence, to making decisions for his household without consultation. Elena was accustomed to doing things her way with the twins. They argued about sleep training, about whether the babies should be picked up immediately when they cried, about how strictly to adhere to feeding schedules. But there were beautiful moments too. The first time Miguel rolled over, both Elena and James were there to witness it, exchanging delighted glances over the baby's proud wiggling. When baby Lily took her first steps, she toddled from Elena's outstretched arm straight to James, who caught her with tears in his eyes. And older Lily blossomed in her role as big sister, reading stories to the twins and helping with bath time, her previous loneliness forgotten in the chaos and joy of their expanded family. One night, nearly a year after the twins' birth, James came home from a particularly difficult shift. There had been a house fire, and though they'd saved the family, a child had been badly injured. These calls always hit him hardest. He found Elena in the living room, the twins asleep in their playpen nearby. She took one look at his face and wordlessly poured him a glass of whiskey, sitting beside him on the couch. Bad day? She asked softly. James nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Elena didn't press for details. She simply sat with him in companionable silence, her presence somehow making the burden lighter. Thank you, he said finally. For being here. Elena smiled. Where else would I be? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning neither was ready to acknowledge. Their 6-month trial had extended to a year with no discussion of Elena finding her own place. They had fallen into a rhythm that worked, a partnership built on mutual respect and the shared love of their children. But there was something else growing too, something neither had anticipated. It was Lily who finally forced the issue, in the direct way of children. At dinner one night, she looked between Elena and her father and asked innocently, "If Elena is Miguel and Lily's mom, and Dad is their dad, and I'm their sister, does that make Elena my stepmom?" The question hung in the air as James and Elena exchanged startled glances. "It's not quite like that, sweetheart," James began carefully. "Elena and I aren't married. We're just co-parents," Elena supplied, the familiar term suddenly feeling inadequate. Lily frowned, processing this. "But you live together. And you take care of each other. And sometimes I see you looking at each other like in those movies where people are in love but don't know it yet." James nearly choked on his water while Elena's cheeks flushed pink. "Finish your dinner, Lily," James said, desperately changing the subject. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Elena found James sitting on the back porch, staring at the stars. "Kids say the darndest things, huh?" she said lightly, sitting beside him. James turned to look at her, his expression serious. "Do I really look at you that way?" Elena's smile faltered. "I don't know. Do I look at you that way?" The question hung between them, neither willing to be the first to admit the truth that had been growing for months. "This wasn't supposed to happen," Elena whispered finally. "We were just trying to do right by the twins." "I know," James agreed. "But somewhere along the way, everything changed," she finished for him. James reached for her hand, his touch tentative. "I didn't plan to feel this way, Elena. After Sarah died, I never thought I'd want to open my heart again. And I never thought I'd want to share my life with anyone," Elena admitted. "I was so determined to prove I could do everything on my own." "We're better together, though, aren't we?" James asked softly. "Not just for the kids, but for ourselves too." Elena nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. "I'm scared, James. What if we try this and it doesn't work? We've built something so good for the children." "That's exactly why it will work," James said with quiet confidence. "Because we already know how to be partners. We already know how to compromise and communicate and put the children first." "And the other stuff?" Elena asked, her voice barely audible. "The feelings?" James smiled, reaching up to brush a strand of hair from her face. "I think those have been there for a while now. We just haven't been brave enough to acknowledge them." Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, James leaned forward and kissed her. It was gentle and questioning at first, then deepening as Elena responded, her hands coming up to frame his face. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. "So what do we tell Lily?" Elena asked. "The truth," James said simply. "That sometimes families come together in unexpected ways. That sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never saw coming." The twins' second birthday party was a joyful chaos of balloons, cake, and toddlers running in every direction. James watched from the grill as Elena knelt to help Miguel blow out his candles, her engagement ring catching the sunlight. His sister sidled up beside him, handing him a beer. "Who would have thought that rainy day would change everything?" she mused. James smiled, watching as Lily, now 12 and fiercely protective of her younger siblings, helped baby Lily unwrap a present. "Sometimes I still can't believe it," he admitted. "That I stopped for a stranger in the rain and ended up finding my family." "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't stopped?" his sister asked. James shook his head. "I couldn't have driven past someone who needed help. It's not who I am. And that's exactly why you deserve this second chance at happiness," his sister said, squeezing his arm affectionately. Later that evening, after the guests had gone and the children were asleep, exhausted from the excitement, James found Elena in the nursery. She stood between the twins' beds, watching them sleep. Penny for your thoughts, he whispered, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Elena leaned back against him. I was just thinking about that day at the hospital, when they told me about the mix-up. I was so angry at first, at the hospital, at the universe for one more complication. And now? James asked, resting his chin on her shoulder. Now I think it might be the best mistake anyone ever made, she said, turning in his arms to face him. Our double blessing. James kissed her softly. From strangers to family in one rainy afternoon. Some might call it fate, Elena suggested. I call it the luckiest wrong turn of my life, James replied. As they stood there in the soft glow of the nightlight, surrounded by the gentle breathing of their children, both knew that sometimes life's most beautiful stories begin with unexpected detours, and that sometimes, helping a stranger can lead you exactly where you're meant to be. 3 years later. James adjusted his tie nervously as Lily, now 15 and stunning in her junior bridesmaid dress, handed him the rings. Don't drop them, Dad, she teased. I'll try not to, he promised, glancing over to where the twins, now 5 years old, were practicing their roles as ring-bearer and flower girl under Elena's mother-in-law's watchful eye. The small garden where they'd chosen to hold their wedding was blooming with spring flowers. Friends and family filled the chairs, including several firefighters from James's station and Elena's colleagues from the design firm where she now worked part-time. When the music began and Elena appeared at the end of the aisle, James felt his breath catch. She was radiant in a simple white dress, her dark hair adorned with tiny flowers that matched the twins' bouquet and boutonniere. As she walked toward him, James reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them here, from a chance encounter in the rain to co-parents to friends to lovers to, now, husband and wife. Elena reached him, taking his hands in hers. Ready for our next chapter, she whispered. James smiled, squeezing her hands. With you and our 3 miracles? Always. As they exchanged their vows beneath the spring sunshine, surrounded by the family they had built together, both knew that sometimes life's greatest blessings arrive in the most unexpected packages, and that sometimes, the family you're meant to have finds you in the most extraordinary ways. The doctor's face had paled that day as he looked between the birth certificates and the DNA results. Mr. Parker, there's something you need to know about these twins you helped deliver 3 months ago. James had felt his world tilt sideways as the words hung in the air. According to these tests, you're their biological father. In that moment, James couldn't have imagined how a hospital error would transform his life, bringing him not just 2 more children to love, but a partner to share his journey, healing the wounds of his past and opening his heart to a future brighter than he'd ever dared to dream. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin with an act of kindness. Sometimes your destiny is waiting at a bus stop in the rain. And sometimes, the family you're meant to have is just one good deed away. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories about how fate, kindness, and love can change lives in the most unexpected ways. Remember that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as chance encounters, and that opening your heart to help others might just lead you to exactly where you're meant to be.